All right. Questions? Questions on strategies? Documenting the plan. Why are we documenting? Why are we documenting?
If you don't write it down, it never happened.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You want it detailed enough so that if somebody who's never done any of these things before, only read the plan, they could restore to your critical operations, and they could do it when they're panicking like a muppet, right? What's the problem with that? What's the problem with that? What's the risk? What's the security risk in creating that plan? You've just described how you do business. You have a step-by-step plan. If anyone wanted to set up competition, that's how to do it. That's how to do it. Now, is it the thorough, overarching, enveloping way that you do all your business operations? No. Do not write down how to conduct HR tasks. That's not critical business operation, unless you work for Manpower, okay? You're only going to do your critical path stuff up here. Checklists, again, checklists are your friend. I'm a big fan of checklists. When you're documenting it, when you're crafting it, one of the things that you have to be concerned with is what is an event? Who gets to call it? If a user sees something that looks like it could be an event, do they get to hit the panic button and stop the train? Can they do that? Can they declare an event?
Depends on the business.
Yeah. Depends on the business, but most likely no. Most likely they got to escalate, right? Why? Why don't you want them doing that? Yeah? Why don't you want them doing it?
Because they might not know what the right triggers are.
Yeah. They might feel like this is really an event, but they're not informed as to what it is, or they may not be able to identify what it is. Good. Also, who's going to be on the team? Who are the team members? You have to identify them right off the bat. You're going to describe the different strategies that you're using to implement your plan in the plan itself. Who's going to manage these efforts? Usually during a disaster, who is the manager? How is it managed? Do we put together a teleconference with each of the key decision makers? No.
Usually the highest ranking person on duty is in charge.
Yeah. Usually you delegate that authority to one person, and they are empowered for the duration of that event to make those calls. Why do you do that in a disaster? We don't do that in normal day-to-day operations. Why do we do that in a disaster?
Somebody needs to direct, and you don't want to have conflicting direction.
Absolutely. It's time dependent. And unfortunately, even if they're making mistakes, they're going to be fast mistakes. And it gets us on the right road to recovery faster. And if they have the plan, they should be able to make those calls and not make too many mistakes. The plan should cover how, I know we sent HR home, but the plan should tell you how we're going to address HR issues. What kind of HR issues would take place during an event? Talking about giving people raises, giving them their annual evaluations? No.
Who's expected to report to work, basically?
Yeah. And how do you tell people to stay home if they're not expected, right? How do you account for everyone's safety? Those are important issues. Recovery costs. Finance should be part of crafting this plan. They might not be working the actual disaster themselves, but they're going to want receipts. And they're going to want to know how these expenses were accounted for, right? That's got to be part of the plan as well. You've got to let the team personnel know how to account for themselves, because if they're expending some of their own funds, especially on travel, they've got to be able to be reimbursed at the end, right? You need to be able to tell both the folks in the organization and people outside what's going on. We already talked about public relations. Your customers and other stakeholders have to know what's going on with you, as do regulators. And sometimes the news media wants to know. At the hotel restaurant, they got TVs set up. And I saw something that happened to a business here in this state last night. Anybody see something on the news? an employee lost 3 fingers in an explosion. Does the company really want to tell the world that they blow up? No, but the news is very interested because, hey, fingers, right? And explosion. So you have to be able to know how to set up those communications plans. Who is going to deal with the media and external stakeholders during an event? Every team member? Are they assigned media personnel to shepherd through? Are they assigned, you're going to farm it out, distribute it? No, Leslie, why not?
No, you just have one central person, I would think.
Yes, why?
So they get the same message.
Perfect, absolutely, yeah. You don't want disparate messages going out because that's going to confuse things. Even if that message needs to be corrected and tweaked later on, it's going through one pipe instead of everybody playing rumor control. Good. Every team and team member that assembles for the BCP has to know what they have to do. Checklists. Checklists are huge. With enough specificity so that if they haven't had that position before, if they haven't run it before, they should have, because they should have been at least to one test. But if they haven't, they can still do what they got to do. And how are you going to put this plan out? How are you going to disseminate it? Where do copies have to go? Where do we actually have to put this plan?
At the backup site?
Yeah, we need it at the alternate site for sure. We might need it in a portable kit if we have a disaster relocation kit. We need to have it at the location. We might need to have it with each team member for when they assemble, they carry their own. And we need to know how we're going to get it to them. Because of what it contains, it also has to be transmitted in a secure fashion, doesn't it? It's how we're doing our business. So yeah, definitely. We have to be able to have good, secure handling. We need it. Okay, sorry. We need it at the recovery site. Why are we updating it after each test? Gabriel?
Correct anything that we might have left out.
Good. The tests are to help us improve the process. So we're going to have to create a new version every time we do that. Final retest with someone who's never done any of the original tests. We want this thing to be bulletproof. We want it to be stupid-proof. We want it to be something that anybody could go through as long as they'd been in that position before and they're a reasonable person. They could follow this checklist and using their own innate knowledge and job training could follow those steps. You want to be able to know what happened during those tests or previous incidents because those incidents are going to be inputs later on to the new plan. How was it identified? Who saw it first? Who was able to determine whether or not that was an incident and how did it get up the food chain? Who were the participants? Who actually took part in this thing? Which offices took part? Do you need to include more on the next one? Who declared that it was a disaster versus just an event? And who set the wheels in motion to go to the alternate site and start the recovery procedures? Should, again, be senior management or the disaster response director. Human resources support. What are we talking about there? Again, are we talking about their annual evaluations? Talking about their pay raises? What are we talking about here? During a disaster, what are people going to be worried about? Bringing the servers back online?
Do I have to show up for work?
Why are they worried about that?
Because they don't want to show up for work.
What's the most important thing they're going to be worried about when they're not showing up for work?
Am I going to get paid?
Okay. Oh, wow. I like your spirit. This is good. I think like you. I'm a capitalist. Other than getting paid, or what's the reason they want to be sure they're getting paid? What is the number one thing they're worried about in a disaster?
Do I still have a job?
You guys are good. You're dedicated. I can see why they brought you on. Some people will be worried about their families during a disaster.
That's trickle down.
Okay, all right.
Is the
And
money
that's what I'm
coming in
saying.
so
The
I can
pay,
take care
you
of my
need the
family?
pay to
Yeah.
take care of your family.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you there. I'm totally with you there. It would be great to think that when the floodwaters are coming or the fires are raging, we're really concerned about the business operations. Realistically, we want to know where our kids are. We want to know where our significant others are. These are things that are really important to us. Before I get on a plane and go to Omaha, I'm going to want to make sure that my dog is safe, right? I almost said penguin, but I don't own one. That would be illegal. Human resources should address this in the plan. There should be a way that we can let our BCP team members know that their people are safe and are going to be taken care of during that time. When we're doing that work from home stuff, maybe HR and finance can set forth advances for the family members of people who have already been activated for the BCP. Right? Maybe they have company-issued credit cards for the duration. Make sense? And admin support. Someone's got to be documenting this while it's all going on. The BCP members themselves probably aren't going to be documenting it as it's happening. So you want someone shadowing them. You want some way of recording it. You want some way of documenting it.